I just got done watching the brand new Disney live-action remake of Pinocchio, coming this week to Disney Plus, and it is not great. In fact, I'm actually pretty baffled by some of the choices they decided to make with this one. What's going on, buddy? Welcome back to a brand new movie review. Today we're going to be discussing Pinocchio. This is the 2022 live-action remake, and it takes place in an Italian village where a wooden puppet named Pinocchio is brought to life by the Blue Fairy and seeks the life and adventure while striving to be a real boy. It stars the likes of Tom Hanks as Geppetto, Cynthia Erivo as the Blue Fairy, Luke Evans as the Coachman, and many more. Even Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Jiminy Cricket. Now, I've been very excited for this movie because I think Robert Zemeckis is a great filmmaker that just has not executed greatly over the last, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years of filmmaking. He's made some decent ones over that time period, but nothing has brought the magic like Back to the Future did. But when we look at his filmography and we see that he is recreating Pinocchio, you look at that and you're like, well, Pinocchio is one of the most magical Disney animated films of all time. So you gotta imagine that he's gonna be able to create and bring to life that magic once again. And sadly, it doesn't. This is actually one of my more least favorite Disney live-action retellings in quite a while. And it has nothing to do that it's just on Disney Plus, because as I was watching this, I believe that this is a movie, and most movies that head straight to Disney Plus should go in theaters first. But then I start watching it, I'm like, well, Pinocchio is kind of a smaller movie. It's not like a grandiose adventure and everything like that, so I don't think this would do great in theaters. But in the context of what it is, that has nothing to do with being a Disney Plus original movie. In fact, it has nothing to do with even the budget, because I think a majority of this film actually looks pretty good. It happens to do with the story. It's been my same problem with almost every single Disney live-action remake, has always come down to the damn story. It's like they never know if they should strain too far from the source material, make their own kind of journey, or in general, touch on and make the original better. They always try to recreate the exact same film while adding new moments to it that really don't add much to it, while getting rid of other elements that made the film amazing. And, we could go down a whole rabbit hole of every single Disney live-action remake and certain films and everything of that nature and what I like and what I don't like, because we'd all disagree. We'd all agree to disagree on certain ones. But in this one, in this context, I was very disappointed. And I think disappointment is a strong word, because I didn't even have that much excitement for this film. I had hope and optimism about it, but I went into this with a very clear-minded, just wanting a good adventure. And honestly, it was not that great. But it doesn't mean that it's a terrible movie, so I do have some pros to it. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But I do want to get your guys' thoughts on this movie. Are you excited for Pinocchio? Do you love the original like me and many others? Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button down below, as well as comment down below your guys' thoughts. I cannot wait to see it. Tons of reviews that have already come up this week and coming up next week, so make sure to look forward to those soon. And without further ado, let's dive into this. Starting with my pros, one of the things I do want to give a credit to is talking about some of the cast. So I do think Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Jiminy Cricket is actually a really great pick. I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt, you completely forget that it's even Levitt for a while. In fact, I had to remind myself once the credit came up that I'm like, oh my god, that was Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He did a really good job bringing this voice actor to life. As well as Benjamin Ainsworth, who plays Pinocchio in here. Nothing short of just great. I think he does a great job voicing this character and really, again, bringing Pinocchio to life. As well, Cynthia Erivo as the Blue Fairy. Not enough of her, but I really did appreciate the interpretation that she brought to this role. And last but not least, let's talk about Luke Evans, who plays the Coachman. They definitely extend that segment a little bit more and give a lot more to the Coachman than they did in the previous original animated film. And out of any added bonuses that they give to this movie, it's not the most perfect thing, but I understand with what Luke Evans was doing, he did a really damn good job. Also, one of the other things I want to talk about is some of the visual effects look awesome. Specifically Jiminy Cricket and a lot of the visual effects on certain characters, say the fox and other things like that. I was actually really pleasantly surprised to see how they brought that to life. And Pinocchio, of course, most of all. Pinocchio really is the Pinocchio that you know and love, especially in the way that they do the design. And I'm happy that they did not change the original design. That was something I know as some people were kind of disappointed in when the trailer started to come out and people were like, oh, he looks the exact same. Well, to be honest, that is a near perfect design. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that's exactly what they went with the mentality here, with at least the character. Not the story, but at least the character. And I was happy. Actually, I wasn't even just happy. I was very grateful that they did that, because this could have gone really creepy. And I'm really praying that the Lilo and Stitch live action movie has the same mentality. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And also, the other thing I want to give a shout out to is Pleasure Island. Now, while I do have issues with some of the CGI in that scene in particular, all of Pleasure Island was actually really grandiose, and I was a little bit nervous going into there how they were going to bring that entire sequence to life. But it was really brought out in a really wonderful way. Not as great as the animated film, but for as weird and as wacky as that scene could be, they brought it to life in a new way that I kind of liked it a little bit. But to be honest, I think that's where most of my pros lie. So let's start diving into the things that I'm a little bit mixed on. First off, Tom Hanks. Love Tom Hanks. I think he was a great choice as Geppetto, but not enough depth there for me. I didn't really care too much about his character, and it kind of seemed like he just strolled off the Elvis set. Specifically, if you have seen Elvis, did the exact same accent with a couple different tunes and just a new makeup, and did Geppetto. That's really it. I never really felt too much for his character as I did in the original animated movie. And I liked some of the subtle undertones they did in here, and even some of the Easter eggs that they have around his entire place. Do look forward to those. I'm sure some of you guys will pick those out. And I'm happy they do things like that, because it does remind me of how older original Disney animated films would be, with hiding secrets here and there and certain characters everywhere. And I love that element. But in particular here, I understand that these movies are made for a new generation. It's a whole new medium, this started out as a fairy tale, and, it moved through the silent film era, and it's always been reinterpreted in different ways. And that's how a lot of just our generation in a lot of our animated stories are probably going to be retold, as they're being retold in these new live action retellings. And I know a lot of kids are probably going to really enjoy this, but for fans of the original, the way that I view it is, do I want to show my kid this? Would I rather show them this or the movie, the original animated film? Just go in the end of the day and think, I would rather just show them the original. In fact, I'm just thinking to myself, I would rather be watching the original. I think the original is a better movie and more superior. And like I mentioned, mixed aspect is Tom Hanks. I think he could have been better. Some of my other mixed aspects is some of the story changes. Some of them are good ideas that just are not executed completely or given enough gravitas to really warrant that reason for introducing a new character or a new segment. And specifically in some of the stuff that happens with Stromboli, I think there were some good elements there that, again, were not elevated all the way. And that's what it kind of just looks like. It's a glass half full. Like, that's what this film feels like. It's like, we have all these great ideas from the original. Let's take out some of those, put in some new ones, but those new ones are never given to the great heights. There's some new musical numbers as well, specifically, again, with Luke Evans, who I think was great, and I love the Pleasure Island stuff. But before you get the Pleasure Island, there's this musical sequence, and I'm like, this is not good. And it just drags the pacing down and ends up leaving no magic there like the original has. And now, diving into my issues. This movie is not a great movie. And almost all of that resides in the story. It is boring. It is strung together and just feels not complete. And a lot of that goes to how disappointed I was with the last 20 minutes. Now, I'm not the biggest Pinocchio purist, but I like Pinocchio. In fact, I love that original animated movie, but I'm not a purist. I don't watch it every single year. I probably haven't watched it in about 3 or 4 years. So I popped it on right after finishing this, just to kind of get that magical feeling again. And the magic feeling you get watching that movie in the first 10 minutes is unlike anything that I watched in this movie. And I looked at this film and I was like, well, halfway through, I was like, I'm enjoying this. I'm liking it. But I got very frustrated by the back half, specifically in the stuff that they handle with the whale at the end. I always found that the whale segment is one of the most important pieces of Pinocchio and Geppetto's relationship. And it's one of the most important pieces of that entire turning point of what makes Pinocchio turn into a real boy. And what they do with that sequence is awful. It is terrible. And when you watch this movie, because I'm not going to dive into spoilers for people who would think, you are going to be like, what are we doing? Like, specifically in the way that they get out of the whale, it just gets worse and worse. And then the way the story ended was not good. This was not a good ending. They changed the original ending, and not for the best. And I have no idea what the decision was to do that, because it literally goes against everything that Pinocchio does in this movie. It goes against the entire story, the entire point of this movie. And it's very weird. It's very weird that they would go as far to change that original ending. Because you kept almost every other sequence completely together, but that original ending is so core to the themes and messages of this story. And you just, poof, it just ends so abruptly. And it left me in a really bad mood after watching this movie. And then going to watch some of the original, and I'm like, it was right there. And I go again to say that it's okay if you want to go different. Maleficent's a little bit different. I don't love it, but I know it has its fans. Mulan's different, and I like Mulan a lot more than many other people do. I really like the new Jungle Book because it's the same story, but they change different things here and there. The Lion King remake is the exact same story with added things to it, and I do not like that live-action remake of The Lion King. Beauty and the Beast, same thing. There's some good elements to it, but I don't love that movie. I find myself getting very frustrated with a lot of these movies, specifically even going back to them. And it just makes me always want to go back to the original. So, in the end of the day, Pinocchio is not a great movie. I wouldn't even say it's a good movie. I think this is a very fine, okay, and sometimes even bad movie that has good elements to it. Pinocchio himself, I love the design. Happy they kept it. I think some of the visual effects are good. Some of them are really bad as well. Tom Hanks, I feel like could have been better. It kind of seems like he just kind of slept walk as Geppetto, sadly. Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Jiminy Cricket is awesome. Love that. The Pleasure Island stuff, there were some new added bonuses to that sequence that I really liked in the visual flair of it all. But I felt cheaped by the very end. I was very disappointed with the story ending, and overall I'm going to give Pinocchio a C-. This rides that territory of not being terrible, but also kind of being disgraceful. And I give it a C- mostly just for the same fact that I liked elements of it. It's not terrible. I'm just never going to rewatch this. And if someone asks me, hey, should I go watch Pinocchio? I'd probably not recommend it. If I'm being honest, I don't think I would recommend this movie. I would just tell you to go watch the original animated movie, which is 10 times better. I'm very baffled by the ending of this movie. The last 20 minutes was awful. So, other than that, I think the movie has decent elements to it that make it not a complete shit show. But it absolutely could have been better than that. So thank you once again, guys, for watching this. You guys are really all the best. I cannot wait to hear your guys' thoughts on this movie. So make sure to leave your thoughts down below. Hit that like and subscribe button. Look forward to tons of other movie reviews coming up soon. And of course, until next time, stay classy.